It was supposed to be just another late-night interview, another celebrity guest, another carefully orchestrated chat beneath the glow of stage lights. But what happened that night on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert wasn't scripted. It wasn't rehearsed, and it wasn't forgotten. The audience arrived expecting charm, maybe controversy, but nothing like what they were about to witness. The moment Meghan Markle walked onto that stage, something was different. You could feel it. The room tensed. The air thickened. Colbert smiled, his usual smile. But even he seemed unsure how this one would go. And by the end of the segment, he'd be left speechless. Literally, because the Duchess of Sussex, former actress, royal outsider, global icon, didn't come to play nice. She came armed, not with weapons, but with words, with fury, and with truths. No one expected her to say "not like that." Not on live television. Not to him. And certainly not in front of an audience of millions. What started as light banter turned into a verbal battleground, an emotional standoff, a clash between two powerful personalities, each unwilling to back down, until, at one explosive point, Stephen Colbert leaned forward, face cold, voice flat, and said, "I think we're done here." Gasps echoed through the studio. Meghan didn't flinch. She stood, looked him in the eye, and walked off the set, under the hot glare of the cameras, leaving silence, shock, and stunned faces behind her. And in the days that followed, the internet exploded. Clips circulated like wildfire. Was it righteous anger, a PR disaster, or a long-awaited moment of truth? To understand what really happened that night, you need to go back. Because this wasn't just about a talk show. It was about pain, betrayal, identity, and one woman who decided she'd had enough of playing the role, of staying silent, of being polite in the face of cruelty. And that night, on The Late Show, she chose something else. She chose to fight back. And the world was watching. From the moment Meghan sat down, something was off. Stephen tried to steer things into safe waters, talking about her podcast, motherhood, her move to Montecito. But Meghan wasn't there for comfort. Her posture was straight, controlled, like a storm waiting to break. She smiled. Yes, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then came the first subtle jab. Colbert leaned forward, hands folded, and asked, "So Meghan, does it ever feel like you and Harry are addicted to the spotlight?" The audience chuckled nervously. Meghan didn't laugh. She held his gaze, tense silence. Then she replied, calmly, "That's funny, coming from someone who's built a career turning headlines into punchlines." A few gasps. A pause. Colbert blinked. The crowd wasn't sure whether to laugh or hold their breath. He chuckled awkwardly. "Touché. I suppose that's fair." But Meghan wasn't finished. She turned slightly toward the audience, voice even word sharp. "I think what people misunderstand is, we didn't walk away from royalty for fame. We walked away for freedom, safety, sanity." The crowd murmured. Colbert tried to pivot. "Sure, but you must see how some might say." She cut him off. "That we're profiting off pain." He nodded. "That's the perception." Meghan leaned forward now. Her voice dropped, quiet, controlled, lethal. "Perception," she said, "has always been used against me. Ever since I walked into that palace, my existence became controversial." She glanced down. A flicker of something hurt, exhaustion, rage. "You know," she continued, "there's something surreal about watching people debate your humanity from behind screens." Colbert shifted uncomfortably. She wasn't playing the celebrity game. She wasn't performing. She was exposing something raw, something ugly. "I lived through being told I made Kate cry," she said, "when the truth was the opposite. I stayed silent. I let them bury me in headlines. And when we tried to speak up suddenly, we were the problem." The room had gone quiet. Even Stephen had lost his rhythm. "I came here tonight," Meghan added, "knowing full well that no matter what I say, someone's going to twist it. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's time I stopped trying to be digestible." Colbert raised an eyebrow. "So you're not concerned about how this might come across?" She smiled, but it was a tired smile. Sad. "I'm not concerned anymore about being palatable," she said. "I'm concerned about telling the truth." That was the turning point. From there, the tension only escalated. Colbert tried to reclaim control. "But Meghan, you must admit, there's been a lot of contradiction. Privacy versus publicity. Criticism of the monarchy, but signing deals with Netflix, Spotify, books, interviews." Meghan's tone sharpened. "And what would you have us do? Hide? Apologize for surviving? For using our voice when that same institution wanted us silent or gone. You don't think the way you've spoken about your family has added fuel to the fire? He asked. She looked down for a beat, then back up. Stephen, my daughter is black, my son is black. And before they were even born, there were conversations within the royal family about how dark their skin might be. You could hear a pin drop. And when I was suicidal, when I asked for help, I was told no. That it wouldn't look good for the crown. Her voice cracked, but she didn't break. I nearly died for that family. And now I'm supposed to stay quiet because I wrote a memoir. Because I made a podcast. You call that betrayal. I call that survival. There was no laugh track now. No cue cards. Just silence. And truth. Raw. Cold. Uncompromising. Stephen sat back, unsure. He tried gently to steer the moment. Look, I think everyone sympathizes with. But again, she cut him off. No, they don't, she said. Because if they did, I wouldn't be here having to defend my pain. Her eyes locked on him. I came here to be honest. But maybe this is why most women stay silent. The audience didn't clap. They didn't know if they were supposed to. They just sat there, caught in the middle of something too real to ignore. Stephen finally spoke, voice lower. I think we all want healing. Meghan nodded slowly. So do I, she said. But you don't get healing without truth. He opened his mouth to respond, but she wasn't done. She leaned in one final time. You know what hurts most? It's not what the tabloids said. It's not the palace silence. It's moments like this, when people pretend to be allies. But when it's uncomfortable, they back away. They change the subject. They make jokes. Colbert blinked. He'd been accused directly. And the audience knew it. You don't think I noticed, she continued. When even liberal spaces rolled their eyes at me. When people like you ask gotcha questions instead of asking real ones. This is why nothing changes. That was the blow that landed. Hard. Colbert looked stunned. A long silence. And then, a soft laugh from somewhere in the back row. Not mock. Disbelief. The tension was unbearable. And then Stephen said the words that would ricochet across the world. I think we're done here. He didn't shout. He didn't laugh. He just said it flat, cold. Final. Meghan stood. Slowly, calmly. She picked up her mic, handed it to the stagehand, turned to Stephen, and said, softly, you already were. Then she walked off the set. No goodbye, no music. Just stunned silence. And that silence said everything. The world didn't wait. The moment that final clip aired, just seconds of Meghan standing, handing back the mic, and walking off the stage, social media erupted. The video was up within minutes. On TikTok, it spread like gasoline on fire. On Twitter now, Exit exploded into trending hashtags. 2h. Meghan vs Colbert, #Late Show Meltdown, #Duchess Unleashed, and then, the world split in two. One half called it defiance, courage, a woman refusing to be humiliated. The other half, they called it narcissism, arrogance, another Meghan Markle moment. But buried beneath all the noise, the memes, the pundits was something no one could ignore. Something had snapped. Not just in Meghan, but in all the people who'd ever watched someone suffer in silence, and told them to smile through it. The very next morning, Colbert's team released a statement. Last night's interview with Meghan Markle took an unexpected turn. We respect her decision to speak openly, and we wish her well. Neutral. Polished. Sterile. But Meghan, she didn't wait for the media to define the moment. She posted her own message, short, devastatingly clear. Sometimes the only way to stay sane is to stop pretending. I'm not sorry for telling the truth. Not anymore. And suddenly, it wasn't just about that night. It was about every other night that came before it. Every whispered comment, every brutal headline, every lie that was easier to believe than her truth. 3 days later, Oprah called. No cameras. Just a private call. But it leaked anyway. Sources said Oprah told Meghan, "You did what most people wouldn't. You stopped being polite." And Meghan reportedly replied, "I stopped being afraid." That week, The Late Show's ratings hit a record high. But not for reasons Stephen Colbert liked. Clips of him looking rattled. Clips of him ending the interview. Circulated with hashtags like, #silencing black women, #performative allyship, #protect black voices. And, slowly, the internet began to dissect everything. Why did Colbert ask her about contradictions, but not about survival? Why did he bring up Netflix, but not mental health? Why was his tone different? It wasn't a takedown, it was an awakening. Even longtime fans began to ask, had Stephen Colbert champion of progressive voices, revealed a blind spot. Was his brand of satire just another form of deflection? Then came the avalanche. Journalists, activists, even psychologists began writing think pieces. The Meghan interview, why we still struggle with women who break narrative. Colbert's discomfort mirrors ours, why we can't handle unfiltered emotion on screen. When politeness becomes a cage. Suddenly, it wasn't about Meghan Markle versus Stephen Colbert anymore. It was about us, what we tolerate, what we silence, who we believe. Behind the scenes, CBS was in chaos. Producers scrambled to do damage control. One executive allegedly told staff she hijacked the interview. We didn't see it coming, but Meghan's team responded with calm fury. In a private message leaked to The Guardian, a source close to Meghan said, she didn't hijack anything. She answered questions. The discomfort wasn't because she was rude, was because she was honest. That distinction echoed everywhere. Meanwhile, in Montecito, Harry remained silent. For 3 days, he said nothing, until a camera caught him outside a charity event. A journalist asked Prince Harry, what do you make of the Colbert interview? He paused, looked into the lens, and said, my wife told the truth. The truth just happens to be inconvenient for a lot of people. That quote hit headlines across the world. And suddenly, a new firestorm began. The palace released a quiet statement. We will not be commenting. But insiders revealed panic behind closed doors. One royal aide reportedly said, this wasn't just a media moment. It's a warning shot. And then came the backlash. From the other side, British tabloids had a field day. Megxit 2.0. Meghan storms out of another interview. Queen of drama strikes again. Is there anyone she won't blame? But something had shifted. People weren't buying it the way they used to. Even in the UK, viewers began questioning why Meghan was always the villain in every narrative. One tweet said it best. Meghan could breathe, and they'd call it an act of aggression. By now, Colbert was in damage control mode. 3 nights after the episode aired, he opened The Late Show with a monologue. No music, no jokes, just him at the desk. Calmer, less guarded. He said, what happened the other night wasn't what we expected. And to be honest, it shook me. A pause. I've built a career on making people laugh, on asking tough questions with a wink. But I forgot something. Not every guest is there to be entertained. Some come to be heard. And I didn't hear her. He sighed. To Meghan, if you're watching this show, is about voices. Even the ones that challenge me. Especially those some applauded. Some called it too little, too late. But either way, the moment became its own kind of history. That night, Meghan didn't respond, but her silence said everything. Because for once, the world was speaking for her. And that's when it happened. A viral TikTok from a young woman named Alicia, 23. Soft-spoken eyes filled with tears. She looked into the camera and said, when I watched Meghan that night, I didn't see a duchess. I saw me. I saw every moment I was told to stay quiet, smile, be polite, while people crushed me. And when she stood up and left, I felt free. That video got 9 million views in 48 hours. And it wasn't the only one. A flood of women, black, brown, immigrant, working class, began sharing their own Meghan moments. Not royal ones, just real ones. And just like that, the conversation changed. What began as a walk-off turned into a movement. Not about celebrity, not about monarchy, about dignity, about emotional survival, about the cost of silence. In the days that followed, something remarkable happened. Not a press conference, not a lawsuit, but something quieter, more lasting. Meghan didn't disappear. She didn't go into hiding. She didn't issue a second statement or launch a brand new platform. She did something that caught everyone off guard. She stayed still. She let the world do the talking. And for once, it did. Universities held panels about the moment. Podcasts dissected every second of the interview. Therapists wrote essays about public trauma, about microaggressions, about the emotional labor of women who are expected to be both silent and soft. But most powerful of all were the letters, the DMs, the handwritten notes, thousands of them, from women, from mothers, daughters, survivors, not fans, witnesses, people who'd never met Meghan Markle, never even cared much about the royals, but who suddenly saw themselves in her. They saw the restraint in her voice, the exhaustion in her eyes, and that haunting moment when she stood up, not out of rage, but out of clarity. She wasn't walking away from Colbert. She was walking toward herself. In a world addicted to performance, her silence became an act of rebellion. And yet, There was one final chapter to this story, a letter private, at first but eventually leaked. Not by Meghan, but by someone close to her, someone who said it deserved to be seen. It was addressed to Colbert, not CBS, not his producers. Stephen. It read, "You asked questions, I answered. That's the transaction, isn't it? But beneath it, there's something deeper, something painful. I didn't come to your show to wage war. I came hoping for humanity. I'm not angry that it turned out the way it did. I'm just tired of being polite while being diminished, of being asked to laugh while I bleed," he said. "I think we're done here. And you were right, but I wasn't done with my truth. None of us are. No signature, no demands, just that." And for many, it was the most powerful part of all, because it wasn't about winning. It was about being heard, even if only after walking away. 6 weeks later, Meghan made her first public appearance. It wasn't at a premiere or a gala or even a speaking engagement. It was a shelter for women, a place where stories don't make headlines, but they save lives. No fanfare, no press, just a quiet visit. One staff member said she stayed for 3 hours, talked to every woman there, held their hands, listened, and before leaving, she said something to the group that would later be quoted across the world. "Your silence was never the problem. Their refusal to hear you was." Meanwhile, The Late Show changed. Not drastically, but enough to feel it. More female guests, more journalists of color, more open conversations. Colbert, to his credit, didn't pretend the moment never happened. In a rare moment during another interview, he said, "Sometimes we learn things the hard way, but if we're lucky, we listen, and the world, it moved on. As it always does. But something stayed. Attention, a memory, a mirror." That clip of Meghan walking off stage still circulates. It plays in dorm rooms, offices, group chats, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real, and in a culture obsessed with the curated, the controlled, and the calculated, realness is radioactive. People still debate what happened that night. Some say she overreacted. Some say he did. Some say it was all planned. But the truth is simpler than that. A woman sat on a stage, was asked a question, answered it, and the room didn't know what to do with her answer, because it didn't sound like entertainment. It sounded like truth. And truth is messy, uncomfortable, un-Polish. It doesn't fit inside the boxes we built for people like her. People we'd rather see smiling than speaking. But maybe that's why it mattered. Because it showed us, if only for a moment, what it looks like when someone refuses to shrink for our comfort, when they choose honesty over harmony, when they stand and walk away not to escape, but to reclaim, in the end. That's what this story is really about. Not Meghan Markle, not Stephen Colbert, not the headlines or the hashtags. It's about what happens when someone stops being who we want them to be and starts being who they are. No filter, no apology, just truth.